Excellent. And we can move to the next slide. That'd be great. Vimal. Perfect. So, okay, so I'm hosting today. My name is Fraser Morrison. I've been friends and worked with AJ and Vimal and Dora for many years. And it's my privilege to host this session and introduce everybody and facilitate the questions and answers. As we go through the session, if we can keep our mics muted, because there's going to be a lot of people here. Videos on is great. And if you've got questions, pop them in the chat, and we'll use that to come back to questions later on. If I introduce Vimal first, amazing guy, being so experienced in business, so well connected, specializes in customer experience, obviously, because that's what we're here to talk about. Worked with many clients, especially in the airline industry over the years. And AJ, managing partner as well, expert, customer-centric, strategy, innovation, commercial excellence, worked with some massive companies over the years and huge projects, had huge impact on the businesses that he's worked with. So I'm going to hand over to AJ now, and he's going to facilitate the session, and then we're going to go from there.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Fraser. Everyone, just to let you know, we're going to try to end up today's session 5 minutes before the top of the hour, just to give you time so you can set up for your next meetings that I'm sure everyone has after our session. So just to give you a little bit of a feeling of when we'll end up. But we do want to make this interactive today. We have ideas and insights to share, but of course, we don't want to just lecture. We'd like to get your inputs as well. And to start off, we'd like to understand from your perspective, what does commercial excellence mean for you? And to be able to get your input, we'd like to invite you, if you have a mobile phone with you, if you can please take that out, scan the QR code. We have a Menti that we will use to crowdsource your ideas on answering what commercial excellence means to you. If you just want to stay on your laptops, go to menti.com and you can put in this code that you see on the screen here, and you'll be able to contribute your answers. So we'll leave this slide up for a moment. It's going to take, maybe a minute for you to enter some ideas of what commercial excellence means to you. We'd love to hear your ideas. And then at the right moment, we'll share with you what everyone's saying, and then we'll digest it from there.
Thanks, AJ. So just to get everyone on the same page, you can either scan the QR code with your phone, or if you're on your phone, you might want to just open up a browser window, go to menti.com and put in that code that you see on the bottom left, 79016542, and then just put in as many answers as you want as to what is commercial excellence. We'll just give it a few more seconds, and then I'll switch the screen, shall we, AJ?
Yep. All right. Let's see what answers are coming up. Okay. So just to unpack this a little bit. So it's about meeting customers' needs. I love that this is mentioned. Achieving higher revenue and margins. Yeah, it's very commercially oriented. Staying ahead of the competition. How can we do that? Especially when your competitors are probably pretty good as well. It's about growth. It's about being close to your customer. Business excellence, performance, how an organization can successfully deliver value and acquire sales and market share. I think it's a fantastic definition of commercial excellence. We're seeing efficiency in all business processes to provide best services to clients. Build trust-based relationships resulting in higher revenues. A centric approach, okay, I hope we mean a customer-centric approach rather than a product-centered approach. Optimizing commercial processes. So what are the commercial processes? Who's involved in the commercial activities of the organization? How well are they aligned? And that leads to the final point here, leading excellence across all angles of the business and exceeding customers' expectations. All right, so a lot of great attributes here. The comment above even mentioned specific tools like, pricing strategies, CRM, and distribution, all of these areas coming together. So great. It's I love all of these viewpoints coming in. There's no but from my side. I think commercial excellence really includes all of these aspects. What I'd like to do is take you through our view of how this comes together and also give focus. There's a lot to unpack when it comes to commercial excellence. We're not going to be able to go into every single aspect of it, but we really want to target and focus in on a specific area. So we'll bring you to that in just a moment. Right. So from our perspective, having worked with a lot of clients across different sectors and geographies, we really see it as an integrated business strategy that optimizes all aspects of leadership and culture. That wasn't mentioned too much, but that's going to be very much there. The mindset for commercial excellence and customer focus, definitely about sales, optimizing the processes, the organization, the tasks, marketing, where to play and how to play, who really are your customers or should be your customers, and do we really understand what value looks like to them? It's about innovation in all aspects, everything that we do. It's about leveraging digital. So how can we leverage digital tools to automate or augment our activities most effectively? And ultimately crafting an incredible customer experience that whether it's B2B or B2C, understanding what an incredible customer experience would look like. And if we do this well, we work towards delivering value that customers are willing to pay for, thereby driving overall business growth and profitability. So we really believe that willingness to pay for is a key aspect of commercial excellence. Do we understand what that looks like from the customer's point of view? Right, so let's begin our official webinar today. We are the Commercial Excellence Partners. We've been together for about a year. And let me give you just a feeling for kind of very high level, very quickly, what are some of the projects that we work on, so you get a feel for who we are. So when we think about commercial excellence, these are the different topics that we see coming and interplaying, the different levers, if you will, when it comes to customer centricity. So at the top, we really very much have customer experience excellence, innovation, digital, all of the things that we've already mentioned. But there's quite a lot to unpack. We can't do that in 30 minutes before we get to the Q&A. So what we really want to do is we want to focus in into one area and focus in specifically on the nuts and bolts of sales excellence. And we're going to focus in onto this little quadrant here, this lever, and giving that the appropriate focus for today. Now, one thing I want to mention is when it comes to Commercial Excellence Partner, we are a group of experts. There's a couple of pictures of us there at the bottom here. Vimal and I are representing, along with Dora, the Commercial Excellence Partners today. For a feel for some of the projects that we've worked on, we've only been around for a year. And what brought us together is a common passion for customers. And how do we work together from these different levers, which we've mentioned, to really bring a harmonious approach to commercial excellence. We've worked with several clients. Some of you are representing these clients that are here. We work with executive education partners from top business schools around the world. And our programs focus on things from strategy, marketing excellence, where to play, how to play, blue ocean strategy, service design and service excellence, and then getting into also things like digital transformation and how do we think digital to create better customer experiences in B2B or B2C environments. And then, of course, leadership and organizational change. As Drucker said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So we've looked at all aspects of how this needs to come together. We've delivered a lot of projects in a lot of countries across a lot of sectors, even though we've had only been around for about a year. But that's a little bit about us. Let's get into the topic of the day. And for that, I'd like to hand it over to Vimal to kick us off.
Thanks, AJ. Thanks very much. So, we all saw earlier when we were asked, what's commercial excellence? We all put in some answers, and a lot of that, was very well organized in the sense that we were talking about the different elements in a business. So there's sales, there's marketing, there's distribution, there's strategy, there's pricing, there's also leadership and everything. And the fact is that for all of us today in this webinar, right, there's 54 of us. Now, we all work within organizations that are, generally serving good products and services. In some cases, actually great products and services, right? I know many of you personally. I know the companies that you work for, very well aware of the good work that you're doing. And we know that, we've been around for some time. Some of our companies have been around for literally 100 years. Everything's going great as far as the products and services are. Of course, there's always room for improvement, but by and large, we're doing all right over there. We know that our marketing teams are doing a decent job at, bringing awareness of the brand and the business to the consumers, to the market. We know that they're doing what they're trying. They're trying very hard to get leads into your pipeline. They're working hard to communicate outward the value proposition that your brand has within the markets that you serve. And then, of course, sales kind of takes over after that and starts to do their magic, right? So they're hitting the roads, they're making phone calls, they're engaging with prospects and leads. We're trying to build relationships, which is a strong thing within sales at the moment. So we all seem to be doing these things quite well. And then, of course, we have our operations team in the background for those of us that actually manufacture products. We've got fairly efficient operations, churning out products, distributing products at a decent cost base, hopefully, or in some cases, it's an ever optimization process that's ongoing. And then, of course, you've got your leadership, and a lot of you are within that CXO level where your daily sleep patterns are interrupted because that's all you're thinking about. You're thinking about the business. You're thinking about how to optimize it and do better. And for most of us, who've got tech resources, we know that they are usually 80 to 90% deployed because you want to keep a bit of that buffer for business that's coming in. So we know that these are the situations that we're in, and yet, right? We have some of these problems within our businesses. We know that for many of us, revenues are fairly uncertain. You're probably already done with your initial 2024 planning for your budgets. And you're not really sure if the revenues are going to flatline. You're going to just see some incremental growth. Are you able to actually see that your margins are growing? Perhaps they're shrinking year on year. Perhaps the post-COVID effects are wearing out and things are normalizing again. A lot of us are seeing that deals are getting more complex. So it's not so easy to just get to the decision maker and get a decision out of them anymore. Certainly, it's much more of a conversation. There is, you may not even know who the decision makers are, right? So decision criteria keep changing. And at the same time, customer demands are increasing, right? So customers are informed by the market. They are unfortunately led by the better brands in the market, the bigger brands that are very, very digitally savvy. And so they apply some of those expectations upon your business, right? Some of you may even see, if you're in the service industry, that customer satisfaction scores are declining, and you're not really able to come out in front of that or control that very well. And the thing that I think all of us are seeing is that the competition seems to be winning more deals, right? So you are losing some, and that's fine, but there's this thing on the horizon that makes you a bit worried and says, hey, so there's startups, there's disruptors, there's challengers coming in the market, and they seem to be communicating in a better way than we can. So in spite of all the efforts that we're putting in, we're still seeing some of these things happen. And the question I really want to leave you with is why? Why are some of these things affecting our business? Why are they affecting us? And what can we do about it? That's really what we want to deal with today. AJ?
Right. So while you're probably a lot of the clients that we've worked with are doing really well, they're usually top 3 in any industry that they're working in. And so they're really good, but their competitors are really good. And so, one competitor takes a step forward in one aspect, the other ones will quickly, follow that lead and maybe even take another step forward. And so we're constantly in this rat race of just incrementally getting better, but no one's really winning. The status quo in any industries, whether it's manufacturing or chemicals or banking or insurance, it's usually there's a very fierce competition at the top end and no one's really getting ahead. And so what do we do in this situation is we look to how can we optimize? And if we look and focus on sales, quite often, well, where would companies focus? They usually focus on themselves. And what we're seeing across industries, across clients, is that quite often your sales process is misaligned with your buyer's process. And So what we do is we focus on what we do, our processes, our metrics. We know what our selling process, our marketing funnel looks like. We know what our sales process looks like. And so we go back to our numbers and say, well, where are we slipping in conversion from one stage to the next? What can we do to optimize that? And it's a very sellers oriented perspective. But the question that we often don't think about enough is, what's our buyer's process? What's our buyer's world looking like? And so we want to kind of really focus on what that world looks like. But let's start off by the traditional. Let's look at the traditional sales approach to the sales and marketing mindset. So if marketing does a great job, they're really building great awareness for our products, our brand, the value that we provide to customers. And that's really building up the top of the funnel. As they optimize, as they start doing a good job there, our customers go to the next stage, which is really the middle of the funnel. So here they're in the consideration stage, they're having internal conversations. We're seeing what we can do to help them along in that process. And hopefully, as they build up confidence and trust along the way, they'll commit to the next stage, the purchase stage. And so we know that this is a very basic traditional sales and marketing mindset that we have. And sales trainers will always come back and focus on this quite a lot. However, the question is, what's the other side of the coin looking like? What does the customer side of this look like? And so while this is your sales mindset, we want to understand, what is your buyer's world looking like? So let's get into that. So Vimal, if we could just move to the next slide here. Yeah. So while this is your sales mindset in the organization, what we are very interested in thinking about is, what are your buyers doing? Before they even contact you, they're going to be doing a lot of different activities, right? You know your sales process is 100% of your activities and the buyers there. But what about, how are you fitting in to your buyer's process? What I'd like to invite you to do is just get back into the chat, write down a couple of things that buyers are doing along their process of making a buyer decision. Again, please go to the chat. What are some things that buyers are doing along their process before they even contact you?
So I like the way you did that, AJ. You were talking about the traditional sales process, the sales funnel that we all look at, and internally we seem to be very focused on, how do we sell? How do we go out to market? What's our communication? What are our messages out to the market? I really wonder how much time we spend thinking, what are buyers listening to? What are buyers taking away from everything that you're putting out there? And this is where we want to come from, right? This is the customer-centric bit in commercial excellence. So putting yourself in the shoes of your buyers now and thinking about, what are they doing, perhaps even before they come into contact with you. How do they come to contact with you?
Yeah. And if we're looking to the chat, there's a lot of good points that are being raised. I'm just going to mention a few of them. So comparing options, shopping around, getting leadership, converting leadership direction into alignment, right? How do we align internally with leadership and other stakeholders on the direction that we want to take to make a purchase decision or further explore options? Vendor analysis, we're going to be looking at cost, trust issues as well. Assess the past vendors that we've worked with, benchmarking. All right, a lot of good points that are being raised here on what buyers are doing that we don't influence. That's essentially, typically, we don't have so much transparency on. Yeah. Vimal, maybe you could take it from here.
Yeah, so we found some research from Gartner, and I thought I would share this with you because this is really, really eye-opening, right? So we all know that, back before the year 2000, buyers pretty much listened to everything that you had to say. Advertising was what defined your product and your service and your branding and your route to market. But post 2000, there's this little thing that came up. It's called Google. And your buyers are really adept at doing it. And imagine what's happening now with artificial intelligence, right? So there's some data here that buyers are actually spending quite a bit of time away from you. Now, the research is showing that 27% of your buyers are researching independently. So they're not even contacting you. They're not even asking anybody. They're not reading your materials. It's just researching based on the problems that they have. Based on what are their needs. They're researching independently. So are other companies having the same problems? How are they defining those problems? Who are they contacting to resolve those problems? And so a lot of that research is happening independently online. Another 22% of them are meeting with, another 22% are actually meeting with the internal buying groups. And what we know for a fact is the buying size of teams is now sometimes 8 to 10 people. It's no longer just one person making the decision to buy or not to buy. Frequently there's a group of people across, from finance, from the business unit, from marketing, from purchasing, and sometimes even engineering and technical. It really depends, right? From IT and so on. And so a lot of the time, 22% of the time, the buyer who's in touch with you, even before they get in touch with you, they're actually meeting with the buying group to understand what are the needs. What do we want to solve from this solution? What does the proposed solution need to have, right? And then 18% of them, again, are actually researching independently, but this time offline. In other words, they're talking to industry experts. They're not talking to you. They're listening to webinars like this one. They're looking at white papers and so on and so forth. And then there's 16% of other work that's happening. And this other work typically involves, so do I need to prepare something for the boss? Do I need to prepare an overview report? Do I need to define what the problem is? Do I need to go and do research? Do I need to observe and measure? All those things are there before they actually contact you. And do you realize what this means? 27 plus 22 plus 18 plus 16. It simply means that buyers are spending 83% of their time without you involved in the process. We thought this was a crazy, eye-opening statistic that is so important for us to understand why it's important to align our selling process with the buying process. And I know this is a busy slide, but we think in terms of a funnel, right? We think in terms of a sales funnel that, oh yeah, so if we make our buyers aware of our product, if we show them we are credible, they essentially go into a consideration mode and then they'll make a decision. But the fact is, we know that we are talking to more than one person, or we should be, sometimes up to 10 people in a team at different times. We know that there's a lot of back and forth. We know that because of Google and because of the need for building consensus internally, sometimes even when bosses change, the process changes. We know that the B2B buying journey is anything but actually linear, right? The buying reality is that it's more like a bowl of spaghetti. The only thing that's missing here is the sauce, if you think about it. So there is a certain progression. You can talk about the problem identification, the solution exploration, the requirements building, and so on. So there is a progression. But what you see is there's multiple regressive loops happening at each stage where, both planned and unplanned activities are happening. And when I say planned, I mean, you've got to involve other stakeholders. Unplanned is frequently because the market changes, because there's black swan events, because C-level changes, because needs have changed, because budgets change halfway. And so a lot of times what happens is that your buyer is going through a process that you're completely unaware of. And it really, I mean, if you look at this slide, it really looks like it's more like a bowl of spaghetti than a linear progress, right? So it helps if we try and simplify this down, right? And if we think of instead of looking at this very complex screen and buying process, let's try to simplify it down into these 6 elements over here. So buyers typically would have to identify the problem that they're trying to solve. They would want to also simultaneously, or at some point, talk about the requirements that they need from the solution or from the products that you provide. They would then explore the solutions that are available in the market. And at some point, they would do supplier selection. But the fact is that as they go through each one of these 4 elements, There is constant validation that's happening, validation, and I would say probably even revalidation, and consensus creation. Because what you want to find is you don't want to shortlist a vendor only to have IT throw a spanner in the works, or finance come in and say, no, this is too expensive, go back to the drawing board, right? So buyers are getting very, very sophisticated. And so you move from we need to do something and what's out there to solve our problem to actually getting consensus across the entire stakeholder team that you're working with. And so how can we as sellers understand what is it that buyers need? So if you understand these 6 elements that buyers have to, these are the 6 needs that buyers need to fulfill, how can we help them? And again, we come back to research. Again, Gartner tells us that having surveyed thousands of buying teams, right, the 2 biggest things that buyers are saying in the market is we need sellers to give us some prescriptive advice. So tell us, help us to know what we need to do and how we need to do it, right? And then along the way, partner with us to complete the job-related activities that we need to do. So help me to be successful in my company, help me to be successful in front of my boss, help me to make sure that I'm making the right decision and not the wrong one, right? And this is what buyers are saying. And in fact, the flip side to this is why a lot of buyers do not want to talk to salespeople. This is why a lot of buyers are ghosting you, because you throw a lot of information over the fence, but you don't hear from them again, right? And a lot of it is because they're trying to just align the information that you're given with their needs, which is, hey, what do I need to do and how do I need to do it?
Yeah, and just to chime in on that for 1 second there, Vimal, it's the misalignment. So what we're seeing is that the metrics that we have in our sales process, they don't really align with where the buyer is quite often. And so we're pushing for an outcome that we want that the customer's not ready for. And our salespeople, if they're not sophisticated enough to take a pause and to dig into it, we might realize that doing more of what we do, better, faster, cheaper along the sales process, is not going to move the needle. Actually, they might say, we're not ready to have this conversation and I'm going to drop out of the funnel. I'm just not there yet. And I don't feel trust and you don't have an understanding of where I am. You're really focusing on your needs. I'm not ready to meet you at that level at this stage. So how can we help in the other 83% of their activities to build up that trust and help them so when they get into the sales funnel, we're going to be much better aligned.
Yeah, and AJ, that's a fantastic point, because the flip side to that is sometimes by the time the buyer comes to you, they have probably already made a decision as to which vendor they want to go with, because they're just ticking a box to say, okay, I need to have 3 vendors, or I need to have 5 vendors, I need to do a full research. But by the time they're talking to you, if they haven't been talking to you 83% of the time, by the time they come to you, they've probably already made up their minds. And that's the danger. If you don't follow prescriptive advice and practical, if you don't provide prescriptive advice and practical support, that's the danger zone that you get into. So very quickly, right? And this is the last slide. We want to talk about how can we now align our sales process with the buying process. How can you align with your buyers? And there's a 5-step process. So the first thing that you need to do is truly understand and identify your buyers, right? So things like, answering simple questions like, who is my ideal buyer? Who are my buyers? What jobs are they doing? What roles are they playing? And as we said, it's not just one person. It's typically a team of 8 to 10 people, sometimes even more, right? So who are these other stakeholders in the team that I'm not talking to, and how can I influence them? The second stage of this is actually learn about your buyer. And that is simply, again, answering questions like, what does my buyer need to accomplish? What's the question behind the question? What's the objective behind buying whatever it is that I'm trying to sell? And there's always functional needs and there's emotional needs, right? So the emotional needs could be as simple as, I'm new to this role, I need to prove myself, I need to make sure that I'm making the best decision and that I'm able to provide the relevant metrics in this particular situation. So what challenges is your buyer, or are your buyers facing in achieving both their functional and emotional needs? What's driving or influencing them? So what are their values, the business values? Is it a question of money? Is it a question of cost? Is it a question of value? Is it a question of impact? What are some of these achievements that they probably want to be able to highlight? Then you go into help mode. And again, helping is really trying to answer three simple questions. So if you understand that helping is the new selling and selling is not the new selling, what can you do to provide clarity, to answer doubts, to educate your buyers, right? How can you help not just the buyer who's talking to you, but all the other stakeholders accomplish the various things that they need to accomplish within their teams? And then perhaps, intuitively, could you even guide them before they know they even need your help? So could you point them along the path and say, hey, as you go down the roadmap of solution definition, these are the things you might want to look at. Believe me, when you go through this, and I've done this with, at least 15 clients in the last 5 years, as you go through the roadmap, it's wonderful for them to be able to rely on you to say that, okay, I understand what's coming up now, and I understand who are the people not in the conversation with me, and I need to bring them to the table. And these are the things that they will want to look at. And when you're ready, you're going to be able to give me the documentation or the support for that. The second last situation is the engage, where you engage your buyers. Now, how do you, again, it's just giving you some questions like, how do your buyers prefer to engage with you? Some of us prefer to talk on the phone. Some of us prefer emails and documents. Some of us prefer a mix at different times of the process. What is the cadence of contact? Do they like to be in touch with you every day, every month, every week? What kind of information do they like to consume at different times? And where are they in the buying process? And this is truly, truly important for you to get to the bottom of. So you should know this extremely well if they're at the top, if they're in the middle, or if they're right at the end, right? And sometimes they're not going to tell you this, so you got to find this out through other means, right? Sorry. Last but not least, you really should strive to understand. And understanding your client is sort of looking back inside your company and understanding what data and intelligence do I truly have about my buyer. Having identified, having learned, having engaged, having tried to help, what am I getting in return that's shedding more light on the situation on the buyer's end? Is your buyer actually giving you buying signals, or are they just scanning the market, right? And how can you leverage those buying signals? How can you apply various elements to make your buyer move down the path of purchase a little more quickly? Most importantly, what is success going to look like for the buyers? Can you anticipate what they would require at each stage of that engagement with you? So in essence, what we're really trying to do is focus, at least spend as much time focusing on the buyers as you are focusing on your sales process and internally on your people and how you're selling and what you're selling, particularly if you're a very product-driven organization. AJ, do you want to end off?
Yeah, absolutely. So these are a lot of questions that are being raised, but we want to distill this down to three things that we want you to take away to be more customer centric and focused. Is one is really understand how well do you understand your buyer's ideal journey. We know that you know what your sales process looks like. You've gone back to that many times. You're looking at the metrics. You're always trying to optimize, and that's day-to-day business. But the question is, do you really understand what your buyer's ideal journey looks like? And also recognize that there are different types of buyers. Different segments of buyers might have different preferred journeys. Are we like, just have the one sales process to rule them all? That level of that's not sophisticated enough for most of the markets that we're in. Different buyers have different preferences, different needs, different expected experiences and journeys. Do we even understand that? Can your salespeople really even map that out? So that's something we would want you to look into. Next question, do you understand what success looks like for your buyers in each stage of the journey? Again, when we say buyers, there's probably buyers, especially in the B2B landscape. Who are the people involved in the purchasing decision? Do you understand who they are and what success looks like to them? And what are you doing about it? The third question to really think about is, how does your organization currently meet those needs? Is there a strong alignment or room for optimization? Again, it's going back to the 83% of efforts that buyers are going through that has nothing really too much to do with the buyer at this point, to the seller at this point. The question is, how can we become relevant where we're not selling yet, but we're doing a great job of building relationships, understanding, and positioning ourselves for success before they even start the sales process with our teams? So these are all questions that every organization needs to think about. It's less focused on your own processes and what you're doing. And as a start point, because you've done that, but looking with a new lens at what we're doing and looking at it from a customer's lens. What are their jobs to do? What is their journey looking like? And then trying to create a better alignment between our activities and the buyer's activities, so we create a more, like synced and harmonious process. So those are some of the key questions that we wanted you to take away with today. That's something that you should be able to do with your commercial teams, whoever are part of your commercial teams. This looks different in different organizations, but from Monday, we hope that you'll have these conversations with your team and just see how it goes. So we've shared a lot of information with you today. Again, we didn't cover everything in commercial excellence. We really focused on the sales optimization through the buyer process and the seller's process. What we'd like to do is open it up to your questions. Let's be specific. What questions do you have? And to help us with that, Fraser's going to take the lead to run the Q&A session.
Okay, fantastic session, really very interesting, and a topic that I know about, but I hadn't thought about it the way that you've laid it out there, right? And I'm now feeling extremely guilty that I'm not doing that. So I'm sure everybody else has got questions. Do me a favor, either put your hand up. We all know how to do that, or pop the question in the chat would be brilliant. Who wants to go first? Everyone's quiet. You cannot put your videos on. It's okay as well, yeah?
I think there's a comment by Mr. David Yong, as well as Dana in the chat.
Yeah, perfect. So dealing with, actually, David, do you want to put the comment out there? Are you here, David? Yeah, there you are, yeah, got you. Perfect.
Thanks, Fraser. Can you hear me?
Yeah, got you loud and clear.
Yep.
Yeah, so the process, once you start engaging with the client through actual communication, say at the very senior level, the process then sometimes becomes complicated because you have to deal with multiple layers to which the seniors are directing you. And often, basically, you see that expectations and agendas vary, so that it becomes quite complex, knowing that it all will feed back into the loop of that senior who first pointed the external vendor towards his internal organization. Am I making the situation clear enough?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
You in fact you described that slide, that spaghetti slide that I showed you. That's exactly what's happening today.
And that is basically, for me, the biggest challenge in, let's say, past sales processes I've gone through. It starts with an introduction through which you get in through the door, and then the spaghetti starts, Vimal, as you would say it. And let's say more often it leads basically back to that maybe the vendor who tries to sell something should have researched more about the needs of the actual needs of the company, is what you find afterwards. Therefore, different kind of preparation is what I've experienced has been more effective, namely trying to get in through the door, not immediately at the most senior level, but at the owner's level, who actually is going to work with this. That was primarily a comment and observation.
So let me put this over to AJ. So AJ, how would you handle the complexity like that? What would your approach to it be?
Well, one, the complexity is definitely always there. The question is, do we do an adequate job of understanding what that looks like and working with the right stakeholders at the right time? So we might say with the first stakeholder that's just opening the door to exploration, trying to assess, where are you? What will it take to win? What does success look like for you? And it's not going to be buying our product. It's the next immediate step is, who do you need to get on board to build confidence in going to the next step? Who is that stakeholder? What's their perspective? Are we jumping straight to procurement and it's going to be about the numbers? Or is it going to be trying to, validate the value that we're looking for from another stakeholder? Who really is it? And trying to be that guide, that Sherpa for your stakeholder to build the trust to say, hey, listen, let's take this step by step. I'm not trying to sell you anything because I don't even know at this stage how well aligned is our value proposition to you specifically. Let's unlock that by having these conversations and micro trust building activities and being patient about it and not saying, oh, let's look at my sales process and I'm supposed to get you there. Stepping away from that and say, let me understand what are your KPIs? How can I align with what you need to build confidence and trust to move forward in this process? That's not how usually sales do it. Yeah. So can we get better at understanding that?
I'm just gonna quickly add on to that. I think a lot of times when a prospect contacts us, we jump into sales mode because we believe that they've contacted us knowing what we do, unless of course they contact us and they said, so can you tell me a bit more? And then we get into sales mode. It's like an invitation to get into, so let me tell you all about how great we are. Hey, everybody's doing that. You are doing that, your competitors are doing that, the rest of the world is doing that. What nobody is doing is turning it around and saying, I'll be happy to let you know, but I do want to understand where you're coming from, right? So what are you trying to accomplish? Not just tomorrow, but next year and 2 years from now, right? And when that time and that effort and energy, and that's why I showed the 5-step process of identifying your buyer, helping your buyer, engaging your buyer, understanding your buyer. I mean, these are micro steps that you really, really need to go through in order to fully do exactly what AJ has just said. We got a couple of hands up.
So Mazan, you had your hand up first. So you got a question?
Yeah, sorry. Might be a bit noisy because I'm in a hotel lobby.
No, it's okay. We can hear you. Yeah.
All right, cool. So thank you very much. Great presentation. AJ, I know you brought up the issue of trust. So, I mean, it's more like an opinion instead of a question. So what happened is, in this day and age where we already go through the process, right? We've done the funnels, we've done all the research and stuff, and then we've done everything. But when the trust is lost, how do we get back that trust that is lost? Especially here. I mean, I'm based in Malaysia. We have an issue where a lot of clients are not very forward with whatever they give us in answers, especially when we're in the uncovery process and research and stuff like that. So is there another layer or level where we can uncover more information from these potential clients of ours? Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Very, very quick answer from my side, and then Vimal, let's see what you have to chime in. I think it's asking great questions, powerful questions that leave the buyer saying, I'm building trust. So for example, questions like, help me understand what success looks like for you immediately. If this is a good week and this process continues, what does that look like? What would you like me to do to create more value for you wherever you are in the stage of decision making that you're at? Help me understand what are you going through and how can I help you? And I think having those open questions hopefully will unlock some ideas of what they're really going through. And even if you can't fully help them, just understanding what they're going through already helps you a lot with your messaging and what you can do. Sometimes you can't help them, but sometimes there's things that you can say, yeah, you know what, I'm there for you. I understand, I can help. Vimal, what do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree with you, AJ. And specific to what Mazin, I understand if just to read between the lines, if during the process the buyer doesn't trust you enough to give you that information upfront, then you've got to come at it from multiple angles. I think you've just got to, so my go-to strategy in that situation is I'm just going to give you as much as I can with no expectation in return. So if I have a buyer who's being very coy and not saying what they want, I'm going to take over and I'm going to say, well, look, there's a couple of other buyers or there's a couple of other organizations like yourselves who've contacted us, and this is typically what they have gone through. These are the problems that they have had. This is how they approach the solution space. This is how, in fact, the trick to this is you tell them, in fact, for one of them, we told them we are not the right solution for you and why. So when you say these things and when you just offer this up front without waiting for them to ask you, and when you tell them situations where you are not the right solution, I have found, I don't know if it's going to work for you in your industry, but I have found that it works beautifully because suddenly the buyer is sitting back saying, okay, wait, hang on. This doesn't sound like a sale. This sounds like this guy is truly trying to help me, right? And he's even telling me where his organization has failed, And when you do that, when you give that much and when you open up that much, in most cases, I have found you get the trust back 10 times.
Understood.
I'm just
thank you.
conscious of time. Conscious of time, so we've got time for 2 more questions. I'm just going to go to Mahmood. If I pronounce this, I'll tell you. Who said a lot of times the buyer doesn't fully understand his own requirements at the stage of procurement. How would the service provider handle this?
Yeah, so I mean, from my quick. Oh, sorry, Vimal, you want to take it?
No, I was just going to say. Go, AJ, it's yours.
No, I think in this situation, it's very important for us again to be able to show expertise. So how do you build trust is also, is a person relevant? Do they have the expertise that's needed? And at the same time, not shoving something down my throat that I don't want to have. So the question would be saying, how do I display expertise without being pushy? So I can say, listen, here again, like Vimal was saying, other people that have been in this situation, it goes 2 or 3 different ways. Here's A, B, C. Either way, we can get to Rome in the end. All roads will lead to Rome, but there are different paths. The question is, do you even understand what these paths are? And the question is, what is the right one for you based on yourself, based on the organization, based at the stage that you're at? And if you can help them discover these different paths, then you can start building trust. And the paths are not to buy my product. It's very much focused on them and their objectives and focusing on, hey, this is what success would look like for you. If you can get to that next stage, then we can take it from there. But we can't be successful unless you're successful. So that's what I think success would look like in path A, B, C, from my experience, and then pass it back to them.
Yeah, perfect. So one more question. Akbar, you got a question? You got your hand up? You're waiting patiently. Yep.
No worries. Thanks, Professor. Hi,
Yeah.
AJ and hi, Vimal. It's nice to meet you, AJ, after 4 years. Last time we met was pre-COVID in Singapore. It's good to see you. So my question is, so Vimal, you mentioned about the buyers, right? So identify the buyers. So let me put it this way. When we identify the buyers, let's say there are 3 kinds of buyers. One, you have your executive, then you have a executive sponsor, then you have a budget holder who is one of the sign off. And the third one is your people who are actually going to use or utilize your product or services. The challenge becomes the moment you've identified, which is great, and you all know that, okay, what all these key stakeholders require. The challenge becomes the moment you go above the ladder, well, let's say from people who are going to be directly utilizing your product or services, you go above the ladder, which is either you go to the budget holder or you go to the executive sponsor. Those people don't like that because they have their own agendas to get things done, and they want you to deliver what they want. The moment you speak to the executive sponsor or the budget holder, they want certain things in a different manner, in different perspective. And that becomes more challenging to juggle that. Because then if you just deliver, because at the end of the day, you go through procurement route or whatever, it's important that the people who are actually going to utilize your product or services, they need to be happy because they need to pass that feedback because you need to continue that ARR growth, right? So, but on the long run, those budget holders or the executive sponsor looks at it, hey, I haven't achieved my ROI. What have you done? Right? So, and if you go to the executive sponsor, the people who are actually going to utilize, they don't like it because it adds to their responsibility more stuff, which they're not happy about. So how do you juggle this? That's just the question.
Yeah. So it's a brilliant question, and it's the reality in a large buying group that not everybody is going to be on the same page as the individual who contacted you. Sometimes the individual who contacted you is the one who does not want you, and he's only forced to contact you because you've been part of the panel, right? So look, this is precisely why understanding that you're facing a buying team and not a buyer is important, because frankly, the more you engage the rest of the buying team, the more you are de-risking your entire sale process. A lot of people don't understand this. They think that if I'm engaging 10 people, I'm making it more complex, more complicated, there's more chances of failure. But the reverse is true, that if there's someone on that team, particularly if the person who's talking to you, who's not your sponsor, who's not a supporter, by engaging the 10 other people, there is a good chance that you can build buy-in for your solution from there. Now, how do you do that is a trick, but the point is, and this is why people have understood the power of, for example, platforms like LinkedIn, right? Because now when buyer from company A contacts you, you can go back to company A and you can see who are the 10 other people involved in that particular business, right? And you can reach out to them and you can say, hey, I just want to make contact. Now, I'm not saying go above the person who's talking to you. What I am saying is build your links so that if that person ghosts you, you have multiple other options to continue the conversation. And sometimes, in my experience, that has worked. But you should always keep the person who's talking to you, keep that person in copy, right?
AJ, anything to add to that?
Yeah, it's just, with the initial people that you contact is building them as part of your team to sell it internally. Let's face it, at the end of the day, they have more trust in the organization. So how do they become part of your team to sell the solution where they're excited? Let's face it, they're probably, especially in a B2B environment, they're going to get a lot of pressure from procurement, right? And procurements, they're not going to recognize the value. They're going to say it's 10% more expensive, even though it's a 20% better offering than the competitor. That's not their KPI. Their KPI is the cost. So the question is, you got to be saying, how are we going to overcome that hurdle together? Like, do you have use cases of situations where something more expensive has been accepted by procurement? We need to unlock those examples and those use cases to say, hey, how can I work with you to overcome and to get that stakeholder on board with us and try to understand what that works like? And then it's a team effort. The team is now not the buyer and the seller. You are ingrained and you're part of the team, or they're part of your team going through that selling process.
Yeah,
and in fact, actually, sometimes you've got to bring your team to the game as well. So it's not just you, right? Because your team adds value as well into their teams. So if you're not the tech expert, you bring the tech team in. If you're not the finance expert, you bring the finance person in.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. So I'm just really conscious of everybody's time. And Vimal, can I get you to screen share? That would be brilliant, mate. Yeah, please. Thanks. Just the deck again. Yeah, thanks. So just move to the next slide. And AJ, I'll let you take over and wrap up. Yeah, if that's okay. It was lovely to see everybody. And thank you very much. So over to you, AJ.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, like we said in the beginning, there's a lot to unpack when it comes to commercial excellence. Our goal is to run a series of these webinars every month. We'll have different experts that will be joining. It's not always the AJ and Vimal. We might even have some of our customers join in on some of these talks, but we want guidance on what are the topics of most interest to you. So we put together a final Menti here, where what we would really appreciate from you is to let us know which topics under the commercial excellence umbrella that you'd be really interested to participate in. That gives us guidance to the agenda for future webinars. And we will then be able to contact you as well and say, hey, let's understand what's your interest, and let's really formulate a webinar that will be really helpful for you. Our goal through all this process is we're not selling. We don't know you well enough and what your needs are, but we want to be able to advance the topic of commercial excellence, make it a conversation, and just build up our excellence along the way. And so if we can achieve that, that's really what we're trying to do for us and for you guys as well. So your guidance on what topics you'd be interested in would be very, very helpful for designing future webinars. That's pretty much it from my side. And I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. Fraser, thanks for your support to host today's event. Vimal, any final words from your side?
No, man, thanks a lot. I enjoyed this. There's so much to unpack, and it's so difficult to pick one topic. But we tried. So we started today with the sales process and the buying process, and I hope everybody on the call got a slightly different perspective to sales, right? Because it's easy to talk about process and salespeople and tools and technology and all of that, but there's very little focus on the buyer, and that's what we're trying to we're trying to communicate today. So thank you very much. That's it from me. If you guys can leave us some comments in the Menti, that would be very much appreciated, because that would tell us what to do in the future. And last of all, if you want to contact us, we're easily discoverable on LinkedIn. You can just scan the QR codes and connect with us, or you can just send us an email or just give us a call. I think most of you have our numbers.
Okay.
Fantastic.
So thank you. That was lovely to see everyone.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time. See you in January. Have a lovely Christmas. Hope you're all having holidays.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
All right.